Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are returning to the My Favorite LJN tournament, and just kind of going through my notes here. It's been a while since I made some tournament videos. I've been filming an absolute tonnage back to back and kind of posting them, so it's been several days since I actually sat down to actually make any videos while I let those videos play out on their premiere dates. So kind of recapping, and the last video I made, episode 1-9 or tournament 1-9, I guess that was a video that kind of cut out midway through, about 7 or 8 minutes in, so that was the one I kind of had to piece together. Okay, I guess I'm kind of caught up now. This tournament's been mostly Wrestling Rider figures and Ram Treasure figures, so I feel like the last half of the back end of this tournament, at least the first round, are going to be like very LJN original figures heavy. So we haven't seen a lot of Mark Hackenberg figures. We haven't seen a lot of... Well, we got a few Robert Jackson figures. We got a few John Ruggiero figures in there. We haven't got a bunch of Raider Nation figures, which is very surprising. So, I mean, I know I got an absolute ton of Ram Treasures. I'm probably looking at about 60 plus figures or so. But man, it's kind of crazy that how much their figures are taking up this tournament so far. So that's pretty awesome, though. Pretty interesting. Soon enough, Ram Treasures is actually going to have more of a roster than the original LJNs. So let that sink in. That's crazy. Alright. First matchup we're looking at, guys. First matchup is going to feature the Owen Hart High Energy figure as... So... we get these matchups that are like so extremely difficult, like Hulk Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior. I hate that because you got two absolutely phenomenal figures that should go 5 rounds plus, and then you get this, the High Energy custom of Owen Hart, which waist down is, well, you're gonna see the figure, man. And he's going against Jesse Ventura, original figure. Like, what the heck is that? Oh, man. I don't even know how to even choose on that one, but... Rick Steiner scoring off against Ricky Steamboat. Next matchup is going to feature Bret Hart as he does battle against Billy Jack. Because that's Billy Jack Haynes. Okay, so that's MH for Mark Hackenberg. That's the Mark Hackenberg custom. Awesome. And last matchup for this video is going to feature another Mark Hackenberg, Tito Santana, as he does battle against the Random Treasures Brutus Beefcake. Ooh. Interesting. I'm actually kind of curious where I go with that one. I know which figure I like better as far as pose and playability and whatnot, but design-wise, color scheme, that's going to be an interesting selection. So I'm going to go ahead and pull those figures off the shelf. I will be back momentarily. Alright, guys, so the 8 figures have been pulled, and we are going to start off with the Owen Hart High Energy Custom as he squares off against original Jesse Ventura. We'll start off with Owen Hart. So, Owen Hart, this will not be a winner of this tournament. We already know that. This was a member of the My Least Favorite LJN tournament, and this had a strong potential to be the winner of that tournament. It's a bad figure. What makes this a bad figure? Well, for starters, I am not the greatest Macho Man fighting pose fan. Huge Macho Man fan, loved Macho Man growing up. my all-time number 3 favorite wrestler. So Macho Man himself means a lot, but the figure itself was, to me, I don't like that pose. Think Galoob Sting with the fist up. I hate those poses. Those poses are so stupid. Haku LJN, terrible pose. Anything that's something like this is trash. Sid Vicious or Big John Studd with the arms out, fantastic. Arms out like this with like Hulk Hogan, or chops out, something like that, where the arms like this, fine. But when they're like this or like this, you can't do anything with those figures. So putting Owen Hart on a Macho Man body was already a bad decision. If you were to look at this strictly from this point on, waist down, this is absolutely incredible work. Now, the man I bought this from, he is a really solid artist. And I've gotten probably a couple of my favorite figures from this particular seller. But I don't know what it is about Owen Hart, but he just cannot get a good head mold. And I've seen this head mold on other Owen Hart customs, so it's not like that this is the only figure I've ever seen use this head. But look at that. That is not Owen Hart. I don't know what that is. I kind of look at him and he kind of reminds me of, who did I say? Oh, the Umbrella Academy. If you guys watched the Umbrella Academy on Netflix, if in the very first season, I don't know if they were Dutch or where they were from, but there were 3 blonde brothers, I think. They were assassins. He looked like the oldest brother. That's the face of one of the assassins. That's who that looks like. That does not come out to be Owen Hart. So this figure, imagine this figure wins this matchup. This figure could go 3 rounds, 4 rounds. It could make it to the 5th round. Why? Because from the waist down, I love the color scheme. I love the Series 7 Hasbro look. I think he did a fantastic job utilizing that color scheme or that design. I hate the head. The head is, again, I cannot hate on the head enough. Despise it. Now, there are times when I do come out and say, look, I'm not an artist. Like, who am I to criticize someone else's work? Right? I could not in a billion years come out with anything close to something as good as this. But at the same time, I am a consumer. I do buy the item. And at the end of the day, the man made a turn of profit off of me. He made a sale, so I'm not just randomly knocking on some guy's figure that I don't know anything about. I bought the item, and it wasn't because of this. It was actually because of the Jim Neidhart figure. I wanted the Jim Neidhart figure, which was immeasurably fantastic. One of the best figures I've ever seen. But because I was already offering like 2/3 of the price for just Jim Neidhart alone, I'm like, you know what, screw it. Let me just pay the extra third of the price and go for both the figures. Not a good one. He could win this matchup because he's going against Jesse Ventura. At the point in 1980, what was this, 82 or 80, yeah, so Jesse Ventura came out in Series 3, so that would have been 1986. I believe he was already a commentator at this point, so I think a lot of fans, one of their chief complaints is you could have put him in like some kind of suit or something, or some kind of clothing or what have you. There is a sort of Hulk Hogan figure, and no, it's not Hulk Hogan because the way that the hands are positioned, but there is a much better custom figure that they call Jesse Ventura that I do have in this tournament that would run light years past this figure, so I don't mind the pants. Kind of very similar to that of Iron Sheik as far as design, just different color scheme, right? Harm down. I mean, there are a lot of figures like that. King Kong Bundy, Greg So Corporal Kirchner is another one. George Steele. I mean, there are a ton of figures you could choose from that have arm down pose with DDT. It's this. Jesse Ventura is a top 10 worst LJN figure ever made because of this freaking pose. And they do the same thing to Axe of Demolition. And they take Axe from being a potential top 10 best LJN figure and make him somewhere in probably the 30s or 40s among the best figures of LJN originals because of a single pose. This isn't good. And he has a lot of variants as well. This, I mean, I have all my original figures, and then I have all the variants of the figures sitting behind each other on the shelves. So this is just one of those variants. Some of the things that you notice highlighted, you know, red hair, or the pant colors will be darker shade of pink or lighter shade of pink, etc. But we're not doing a review of the figure. We're doing a matchup here. I would say that maybe Macho Man fighting pose would be a little bit more enjoyable than this right here. Not by a lot. At least Jesse Ventura is actually Jesse Ventura, you know. When you look at this, I mean, come on. This is not Owen Hart. When I first pulled the names, I thought it's a bad matchup because both figures aren't going to do anything in this tournament. I was thinking I was going to lean towards Owen Hart to win this matchup, but just kind of looking at them, talk about him, I can't fathom putting Owen Hart. I can't fathom putting him in round 2. This is just, it's not a good figure. I don't know. I still feel like this would be a more playable or used figure. It doesn't matter. They're not going to win. But why can't Hogan go against Jesse Ventura? Why can't Warrior go against Owen Hart, or vice versa, right? Why does it seem like in these blind drawings the most amazing figures square off against each other, and you always lose the best figures very early, but then figures like this square off against each other and you have like these terrible figures going off? When I first did my original tournament, it wasn't just simply the way that the figures were lined up on the shelf. Like back then, I didn't covet Hillbilly Jim as much as I do today. So I might put Big John Studd against Hillbilly Jim. Maybe Hulk Hogan against Iron Sheik, for example. Big John Studd against Roddy Piper, or Andre the Giant against Roddy Piper, or something like that. Why? Because I was doing that because I wanted the best figures. Nikolai Volkov against Jimmy Snuka, something like that. Because I wanted the guaranteed best figures to move on to round 2, where the absolute worst figures were guaranteed to lose in the first round. But then when I decided to stop doing that and start using these blind drawings, yeah, it makes it more fun because it's like, it's unexpected. I'm spending way too much time on this. Jesse Ventura is my winner. He will move on to round 2. Neither one is a good figure, though. Next matchup is going to feature original Ricky Steamboat as he does battle against John Ruggiero's Rick Steiner figure. So, I talk about some of the most customizable figures. Jesse Ventura being very customizable. Usually a lot of time they'll turn him into Hulk Hogan. Roddy Piper is always customized, but again, he's always a repaint. Hillbilly Jim is always customized like crazy. They use his body, they chop off his head, and they put him on other figures. They turn him into like Jimmy Garvin, characters like that, Bruiser Brody, etc. I hate destroying figures. Now, if it's to the point where they're like unsalvageable, so be it. Do what you gotta do. Nikolai Volkov is always customizable. I mean, my own Nikolai Volkov, you've got Sergeant Slaughter figures, you've got Goldust, you've got I think I got a Kane figure if I'm not mistaken. No, I got Mountie, etc. Iron Sheik. Iron Sheik is another one of those figures that are constantly being utilized as a customizable figure. When I look at Ram Treasures Mill Mascaras, all I see is Iron Sheik, right? When I look at figures like Stone Cold Steve Austin, when I look at the Papa Shango figure, when I look at Rick Steiner, all I see is Iron Sheik. It's a great figure. I mean, John Ruggiero, he put a lot of time and effort into creating these figures and did a great job. And what I like about these figures, when you feel on the singlet, you actually feel that rise on the singlet. So it's not like it's just, painted on there. He actually kind of built on the actual clothing, like I don't know if it's resin or what he does to make that clothing, but you can feel the difference. You can feel the difference in the knee pads and the boots and whatnot. So that's a nice attribute. Not very Galoob-esque. Same thing with I think we already saw Scott Steiner, and I think Scott Steiner made it forward to the next round, if I could recall correctly. But great look. I think a lot of John's figures are very cartoony, and even more cartoony than you would get from like Hasbro or original LJN figures. I like the aspect I've talked about, appreciating it when it's more authentic to the 1980s original figures. But so when you get like these 3D printed heads with like more modern day technology where it's like looking at an actual photograph, yeah, it doesn't fit with the retro style of the figures, but I think this might be a little bit too much. It's fantastic. I mean, going for the Steiner brothers from John, that was a huge pickup. Rick Steiner was one of those figures I absolutely had to have. Scott, I didn't enjoy it as much, but you can't get one without getting them both. They're the Steiner brothers. They're a fantastic tag team. One of my favorites. And Iron Sheik or not, it's still a fantastic figure and probably one of John Ruggiero's best. So this is one of those guys I feel like, again, goes multiple rounds every tournament. How far? 3 rounds, 4 rounds? I don't know. It's a good one. Does he win going against Ricky Steamboat? I know that if the original figure goes up against any of the customs, original wouldn't win. In fact, I said that Ricky Steamboat original, among the original figures, no customs, I think Ricky Steamboat is probably like the number 11 worst LJN figure ever. And it starts with pose. Head sculpt is fine. I mean, I don't mind the all black. I really wish on LJNs, even when people customize the figures, that they would stop using like all pink boots, all white boots, all black boots, all red boots, etc. A simple addition of color. Add in white laces, red laces, something. Use additional coloring on the laces. You will make that figure pop so much more, and you improve that figure tenfold. And all you're doing is adding a simple additional color scheme on the laces. Simple. So as an all black, I mean, this ain't what I'm familiar with. Again, I'm familiar with the actual dragon look that you get from Hasbro in the 90s. I don't really like the whole martial arts claw thing here. And the fighting pose, not good. He kind of gives you that Galoob Scott Steiner fighting pose of sorts, right? Scott Steiner, same thing, kind of like this, right? So Scott Steiner is one of those Galoob figures I had from childhood and I utilized, but never enjoyed it. Just like Ron Simmons, it's like, man, you gotta pray for kids who had this figure and had no choice but to utilize it because this is a terrible figure. But then I gotta look at those guys and be like, look, give me extra praise or extra prayers because damn, look at the figures I had to play with as a kid. Scott Steiner Galoob, Ron freaking Simmons Galoob. I mean, come on, there's no worse than Ron freaking Simmons. I mean, you want to talk about suffering from childhood? It's an average figure, man. I hate on the figure, but it's not as bad as I make it out to be. It's like when I hate on Iron Sheik. Is it really as bad as I make it out to be? No, it's not. I think sometimes I just get an extra kick out of hating on the figures because I don't know. I don't know why I do it. I complain about the I complain about the Ricky Steamboat figure. It's not as bad as I talk about, man. I really don't hate the figure as much as I make it seem. And I say the same thing with Hasbro's. Hasbro's LJNs, in all honesty, I love all the figures. When it comes to like Hasbro's, you get the Ric Flair, Rick Rude, 1-2-3 Kid, arm punching. I hate those figures. They're the worst of the bunch, but they're still, they serve a purpose. I still enjoy them. Brutus Beefcake Series 1, I still enjoy it. Okay, so yeah, I obviously have my preferences, but Jimmy Snuka LJN, terrible figure, but I still love the figure at the same time, so I just have preferences, and this is among my preferences. This is very, very low on my list. I know that Ricky Steamboat original would not beat any of the customs, so and very early in this tournament, one of my custom Ricky Steamboats, I pushed past Andre the Giant, and the only reason I did that, I said in one of my videos, never in a million years would any Ricky Steamboat figure like this custom. I gotta specify because I do have an additional Ricky Steamboat that's not this figure, not this pose. None of these figures would ever defeat any version of Andre the Giant. Not a Series 1 figure, not a Series 2, not a Series 6, not any of those customs. The only reason I did that is because they were black strap repaints of a Series 2, and those customs would not beat an original Series 2. They would not defeat an original Series 6 black strap. So it just gave an opportunity for a figure like the custom Ricky Steamboat to push forward and have more opportunities for advancement. But for me, I think this one is a relatively easy. Because of color scheme, I think that Scott Steiner is a very easy selection to move on to round 2. And like I said, possible 3, maybe even a fourth rounder. So we're at about 22 minutes right now, because this might actually go 40 minutes, guys. Hopefully you guys are comfortable with that. All right. We have original Bret Hart going up against Billy Jack Haynes. This is a Mark Hackenberg exclusive or custom. So Mark Hackenberg, as I've said it before, one of the single best customizers of LJN figures. When you look at the original Billy Jack Haynes, it's yellow trunks. So basically, you look at a lot of the color schemes as being alternated from the original. Two very good figures, right? Now, I've always said, even though I list Bret Hart very high on my list among original LJN figures, it's still, even to me, it's a very overrated figure because he's a punch-only figure. And he's essentially a Tito Santana, the original Tito Santana design. Instead of using that Tito Santana, they waited to Series 4 and put that pose on a Bret Hart figure. Pretty much the same thing. Except that Tito, I think, had closed fist, and this one has open hand. But you see the bend and the angle of the elbow and whatnot. So, yeah, pretty much the same figure. Very slight changes. Bret Hart, I think I put him at like number 12 or 13. I can't remember. I have that list written somewhere. I have like my top 20 listed. I think if I ever came back downstairs and filmed a video where I was doing like a top 20 and I was pulling all the figures off the shelf and putting them in order of how I felt, I'm pretty sure that list would be completely different nowadays. But let's say Bret Hart was number 13, and I think I had Billy Jack Haynes at like number 11. I can't say enough about how much I really enjoy this figure. So, yes, I do have the original figure. Do I need a custom? Point is, I like both figures. And because the color scheme are just swapped, it's not like there's enough of a change color scheme wise to say, yeah, I really enjoy this one more than the other. If I'm looking at Random Treasures exclusives of Legion of Doom, I can say, hey, you got the Red Legion of Doom and you got Black Legion of Doom. Black Legion of Doom has shoulder pads. That is enough of a change to the figure to say, yeah, I like these more. But from original to custom, there's not that much of a change. So it's really hard to say which one I would pick if one squared off against the other. Because I really enjoy Billy Jack Haynes more than the Bret Hart figure, I'd rate him higher. I enjoy his pose more. To me, you can just simply do more with the figure. Color scheme wise, much, much better. Again, like I said, Mark, he does incredible work. When you look at Mark's work, you can't even tell that they're not original figures because they're just that good. When I talk about guys like Steven Watson for Hasbro figures, Mark Hackenberg for LJNs, they're a couple of my absolute favorites. So, and I recently got a new figure from Mark, and that figure is going to be part of this tournament. So, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this matchup. I think I know where I'm going with this when I brought them up. There are an absolute ton of Bret Harts in this tournament. This is an original figure. When it comes to the originals, I'm not either purple or pink pants. I just pulled one. I'm not going to pull the other original figure. The variants are fine. Just one is fine. The customs, there's like, what, 4 or 5 other Bret Hart customs in this tournament. There's a couple of different blue pants. There's a red pants. There's his one with the jacket. That's 4. Yeah, so there's at least 4. Oh, the newest one I got from Eric. So there's at least 5 Bret Hart customs in this tournament, plus the original. So you're gonna see Bret Hart in this tournament repetitiously. I just like Billy Jack Haynes' figure better, so very simple. Billy Jack Haynes is gonna be my winner on this one. The last matchup is a very difficult selection, and it's going to be a kind of a unique one because, honestly, I have no idea where I'm going to be going with this one. Yes, we have seen Tito Santana Strike Force in this tournament. Yes, he did move on to round 2 with asterisk. We saw the John Ruggiero Tito Santana Strike Force custom, and he was the one that moved on to round 2. Now, this variant, or this custom of Tito Santana, is a Mark Hackenberg figure, and absolutely, and I think I got this one because I also got the Rick Martel Strike Force custom, kind of the exact same look, right? Whereas with John, I only got just the Tito. At the time I bought the figure, I don't think he had both Strike Force characters. So, and with the Strike Force, I didn't want to split up the tag team, so I decided to just go ahead and pull the trigger, buy both of them. But this was like a year and a half, 2 years ago. I mean, I've had these for a while, so fantastic look. Overall, positive. But you guys know, when it comes to this figure, I am not a huge fan. I love the custom work. Custom design alone puts this figure in multiple rounds. But the fighting pose and the head, which is so-and-so. If a customizer, even if it's someone like Ram Treasures, if they can come out with a new Tito Santana, and I know I say all the time, I don't want a character that's already been released. I want a brand new character. Like, I've seen people write on Random Treasures like, hey, can you come out with a new Bret Hart? I'm like, no, for the love of God, do not come out with a new Bret Hart, because I'm going to have to buy that Bret Hart, and we already have a Bret Hart. Do not come out with a new Bret Hart. But I think that's one time I might say that's fine. If you come out with a much better and much improved Tito Santana, eliminate the stupid pose, give him a real fighting pose. Give him his El Matador pants and, you know, socks over the boots and everything. If you could even have the El Matador jacket, the green jacket, everything that goes over, even if it's like an open slit, you know, where it's bare chest, maybe has like the jacket on though, that would be fantastic. But give him like a real fighting pose, nothing like this. I think that would be incredible. When Random Treasure came out with Brutus Beefcake, again, it's one of those issues where I'm like, where they come out with Rick Rude, when they come out with Ultimate Warrior, when they came out with the brand new Legion of Doom figures, when they already created their own Legion of Doom set. Yeah, they improved their Legion of Doom, but it's like you're recreating characters that already exist in the LJN line, and I don't feel like, well, LJN exclusive only to them, but with Rick Rude, with Ultimate Warrior, now with Brutus Beefcake, etc. So Hulk Hogan several times over, Macho Man, etc. This one is a vast improvement over the original. Now, is it a huge improvement? I would say vast, but incredibly large. No, the head sculpt I like better, because I'm used to Brutus Beefcake with like this long, flowing, luscious hair, right? So kind of looking at like the original LJN and seeing with this short hair and whatnot, that's kind of foreign to me. And the one thing I think that Random Treasures was brilliant in their marketing was creating these rubber shears. Fantastic. Because if they had come out with like resin or I don't know what else to call them. I call them resin, but if it's basically, well, you can't do anything with them, you can't move them, and if you try and squeeze them, they break, type of deal. Because these figures fall off the shelf all the time, right? So maybe not when they're in these stands, but like the David Garland stands I have, yeah, they're constantly falling forward and falling off the shelves. And you know, figures like Fuji and Freddie Blassie, you know, they're falling off their stands, they're hitting the ground, they're breaking, and then their accessories break. So the stands look fantastic, but they don't really work. They're aesthetically pleasing, but that's about it. I much prefer to have these things because they actually function. But very similar to what you get from the original release of Brutus Beefcake. So for fans that actually had Brutus LJN growing up and were huge fans of Brutus Beefcake and were absolutely in love with the action figure, I think they would appreciate this one because of that purpose. Very similar. I still think it's an improvement. And he's more size proportionate, which is great. Because, you know, Greg Valentine and Brutus Beefcake were like exceptionally tall action figures from LJN. And, you know, these figures, they're about, you know, they're roughly the same size. You don't got like, they're not hovering over the other characters like so. Fighting pose wise, Brutus Beefcake has a leg up. Color scheme, I love what Net did with the colors on here. So, and I was able to find a picture. This is something that he did actually wear, which helps. Mark did a fantastic job. But I think I am going to go with Brutus. And I think another thing that really helps my decision is because I basically have this same figure already in this tournament in round 2 with the John Ruggiero custom. So, I mean, would that have made a difference? I don't think so. I think I still probably would have gone with Brutus overall because the overall playability and... yeah. And I like Brutus Beefcake more than Tito Santana in general. So, didn't know Tito Santana as a kid. I mean, obviously later on during the El Matador years, yeah, that's when I can remember becoming familiarized with him. But like Tito Santana in the 80s, you know, I didn't know anything about Tito Santana back then. You know, I could go back nowadays, watch these WrestleMania tapes and stuff that I've been buying up and watching stuff, but and learning about those matches and stuff. But all of these 80s WWF magazines, whatnot, yeah, that stuff really helps. But El Matador, that's who I'm familiar with. So, but Bruce Beefcake, shoot, man, that guy has been part of my TV viewing or my wrestling experience for as long as I've been, for as long as I can remember wrestling. Ultimate Warrior, Hogan, Savage, Bruce Beefcake is on that list. So, Undertaker, Jake Roberts, yeah. All right, guys, that is the end of my 4 matches, and I'm probably going to stay down here, probably make a couple more videos today, and have those 3 videos in queue, and that way, when the next set of videos, non-tournament related videos come up, I can go ahead and film those and get those prepared, probably for the tail end of this week. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and as always, leave a comment if you'd like, and until next time, goodbye, everybody.